Welcome to Suzanne's studio. I'm Suzanne Barnett, your host, and I am so excited because we're doing a show with Jennylyn, who is a TV producer and host. We're good friends, and she's so gorgeous that I wish I had my mask. But anyway, Jennylyn is a good friend of mine. She's a fantastic producer. She's a Renaissance woman, and here she is.
Thank you, Suzanne. I am so grateful to be sitting on this set with you. And you are fantastic and fabulous and gorgeous and my mentor. So I feel very privileged to be sharing this set with you.
Well, I think you're an incredible young woman. And I remember when I first met you, and I never dreamed that you would be where you are today. You have accomplished so much, Jennylyn. You really have.
Thank you.
And you're from Guyana.
Yes.
So tell about that. And the, Jonestown. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I was born in British Guyana, although my parents were not from Guyana. Actually, it's no longer British Guyana, and I've been saying British Guyana lately, and I've offended some of my Guyanese friends. But the reason I refer to Guyana as British Guyana is because there are 3 Guyanas. And when I tell people I'm from British Guyana, they're confused as to which one I'm from. And that's how I differentiate it. But it's now a Republic of Guyana. And although my parents are not Guyanese, my mother moved there when she was pregnant with me, so I am. I was born and raised there. And while I was growing up, while I was in high school, Jim Jones moved there with a bunch of Americans because he came during the time where our government was trying to promote the opening up of the interior. Guyana is about the size of California, but it's not very well populated. And I believe a part of the reason is because you could only have achieved a certain level of education living there back in those days. And in order to improve your education, you had to move out of the country. A lot of people went to Canada, to England, some came to the US and the various Caribbean islands that offered higher education. And I think that affected the population because they ended up staying wherever they went to school and didn't return to Guyana. So Jim Jones came in with all these Americans, and it was a year where the government was trying to promote production so that people could move into the interior and open it up. And so he came as a man of God and performed miracles in one of the largest cathedrals in Guyana. So he convinced Guyanese, including the Prime Minister, that he was truly a special man of God because of the miracles that he performed. We later found out that these miracles were plants, and they weren't truly miracles, they were stage events. But of course, we didn't know. In a church, you don't know everybody there, so it was easy for him to get away with it. And then he chose a very he chose a very isolated part of the country in the deep interior, and it appears as though he had ulterior motives for choosing that location. Where he was, there was easy access from the ocean, either the Pacific or the Atlantic. I'm forgetting my oceans now. But when the massacre occurred, they found enough ammunition in there to take over our entire country. And apparently that was part of his plan. And if that is true, then Leo Ryan saved our lives. And as you know, Jackie Spears is the lone survivor. I've made many attempts to meet and speak with her because while she was a patient in the hospital, I was a nursing student there.
Really?
And we were all curious because everyone was talking about her. So I've always wanted to meet her because she was in the hospital right where I was going to school.
So when did you come to the United States?
I moved here in 1986. I met a dentist from San Francisco who was in Trinidad and Tobago And this, he was participating in a program that was facilitated by the Catholic Church. And what they did is recruited dentists from the United States to provide dentistry for the underprivileged. And while he was there, we met, and I got married to him, and that's how I ended up in San Francisco.
And you have two beautiful daughters.
I did. From that marriage,
Yeah.
I have two girls, and I've since been divorced, but life goes on. And I am now, as you know, producing my show here in the Silicon Valley.
How in the world, from being in Guyana, but you've had a lot of experiences there, but how did you get into television, Jennylyn?
I was an actress. I just did a video while I was in Guyana. I interviewed my high school teacher, and he talked about training me. He was my drama teacher, my history teacher, and my math teacher. And I was probably his most inquisitive student. I was always a very curious kind of person. When you tell me something, it has to make sense in my mind, or it drives me nuts, and I won't give up until I get the picture. And so he trained me from age 12 in drama. And then I went to compete in Georgetown, which is the capital of Guyana, and that's not where I grew up. And I ended up winning this drama competition. Although he'd only trained me for 6 months, I went up against all the different schools in the country, and I won. And I think what made it so impressive, my win, was I played the part of a banana man, which is, in Guyana, it's like a bigger man, it's older, but he was able to really costume me to look like a banana man. So I wore my father's big shirt and his pants, and they put a belt, because I was a tiny, tiny little child. And then they stuck all of my hair under a hat, and he made a mustache and sideburns. And I came on stage with this bunch of banana. I was carrying a bunch of banana. And then I dramatized a poem called Banana Man. And shame on me, I don't remember the author in this moment.
I was going to have you do it.
Oh, I probably could, but not right now,
okay.
because I don't remember most of it. But I ended up winning the competition. And then I was in theater in different parts of the Caribbean. I was in theater in Dominica. You know, I've been acting throughout most of my younger life. But when I moved here, my ex-husband convinced me that I would not be casted in an American theater because I had such a strong accent. And so he was the person that I sort of looked up to when I moved here, because I was young, innocent, scared. When you move here from a third world country, which Guyana is very third world, it's overwhelming when you come here.
Of course.
Everything is. The grocery stores, the streets, I mean, the people you meet. And so if he told me I couldn't do something, I bought into it, and I just gave up on the idea. So when Facebook started, I think maybe 12, 14 years ago, my daughter signed me up on Facebook. And then eventually, I think 6 or 7 years later, my drama teacher and I connected on Facebook. And he said, "Tell me you are in a theater in San Francisco." And I go, "No, I'm not. San Francisco is not a little fish bowl like Guyana. It's an ocean. And there's so many actors and actresses here, no one would cast me. I've never even auditioned." And he said to me, "I don't care the size of the bowl or the ocean. I trained you, I know your ability, go audition." And about the same time, my daughters left for college, and I decided I needed to do something with my life. And I love theater, I love television, I love radio. I think it's innate because I just love talking to people, hearing their stories, helping them. And so this was right in line with it. And I met a producer here from KMVT who invited me on her show, Claire.
Claire Mullen,
Yes. And at the end of the show, she told me, "Oh, you know, you're a natural. You should do your own show." And I thought, isn't this something? Maybe this is what I need to do, not theater. And so I took the classes, I volunteered for over a year, and then started my own show. And the rest is history.
And your show is such a hit.
Thank you.
Tell one of your very first guests.
My first guest, because I'm very spiritual and I have a very strong faith in God, and I know that the whole God thing is all about faith, because we don't see him and nobody really hears. Some people hear his voice. I hear his voice, but it's, if I go down the street and tell the average person, oh, God's been talking to me today, they look at me like I'm a lunatic. So because over the years from childhood I've lived a spiritual journey, I feel that everything I do in my life, I started off with God. So I wanted my very first show to be with a priest, but there wasn't a priest that I felt comfortable inviting on my show. So I invited 2 nuns. And the reason I love them, especially one of them, she doesn't act like a real nun, quote unquote. You know how we know nuns to be with a habit, quiet, you know, pious. She's outgoing. Some days I see her in the street riding a bicycle. She's not in her habit. And only because I know that she's this nun that I recognize her. And she plays the guitar, and she hangs out with the young kids, and they dance to disco music, and she loves Lady Gaga. So I thought, this is the perfect person to start my show with. And so my very first show was with 2 nuns, which I call the rock and roll nuns.
That's darling.
And you know what? My very first show was nominated for an award. I was one of 3 finalists. I didn't win, but at least my first show made it.
That's amazing.
Yeah, my
That
very
really is.
first show.
But then who else have you had?
Shortly after that, I was blessed with Steve Wozniak.
That's the one. Yeah.
I could not believe that it would happen. I was told it wouldn't happen, but I believe. I'm just very tenacious. And when I come up in front of a wall, I think, how am I getting over that wall? I am not turning back. Yeah. I'm jumping over, I'm getting around, but my goal is the other side, and I don't give up until I'm there. And so I was fortunate enough he graciously consented and showed up. And I was able to interview him.
But the other thing I want to tell the viewers is that not only did you learn to be such a wonderful producer and such a good host, but you do all the other stuff too, the technical stuff.
I do.
You have your own camera, you can edit, you can get it into Facebook. How'd you learn all that?
I look at life as from this perspective. Well, Jane Doe is doing it, so why can't I do it? And so almost everything I've done except the cameras and everything, I took a class here at the studio, I took classes here, but outside of that, everything I self-taught. I got tutorials and I watch them when I'm stuck. I'm like, how do I do this? In the past, I used to ask people, but everybody is so busy now that I found out you could Google anything and find a YouTube to help you through it. And so I self-taught by watching YouTube tutorials with my editing. And I'm still a mediocre editor, but I'm getting there. And I notice the more I edit, the better and the easier it's becoming. But I'm by no chance a pro, not yet.
I have a couple of questions that you don't know.
Okay.
That I'm going to ask.
Okay.
These are my only notes.
Okay, I can't wait to hear them.
Of all the talents you possess, which is the one that really resonates with you?
I love people, and I have the ability to get anybody to open up and share stories and answer questions, because I'm not intimidated by anyone. No one scares me. I don't look at anybody as better than myself, or I never look at myself as being better than anyone. And I think because I come from a comfort place with people, I get most people to open up, which people tell me takes skill, but it's innate. I was born with that gift. I think a lot of what we get from people is more about how we make those people feel. And I have a gift for making people feel safe and comfortable because I'm an authentically good and kind person and choose to see the best in everyone.
Yeah.
Most times. I have my days.
Okay. Okay. This is my final question.
Okay.
And you have to really think
Okay.
about this. What really matters in your life?
That I leave an indelible mark of change for the better, for kindness, for compassion in every life that I meet, especially the people who need it, and that I live in a state of forgiveness because I have learned, because I've heard this over the years, but until I started incorporating this in my own life, I didn't realize how true it really is. When you don't forgive, you are not hurting the person, you're hurting yourself. Because that person is living and enjoying their life, and they're not even thinking about you. And while you're holding on to whatever the hurt was, or whatever the injustice was that was done to you, you are keeping it alive, and it's impacting you, not them. So I would say that would be my answer to that
You sure
question.
have good answers.
Thank you.
No, you do. And this is another question that I think is so interesting. And this was not my answer, but I think it says it for everybody.
Okay.
What really matters in most people's life is to be loved and to love. Let me put it first. First to love and then be loved. And that's really what it's about, too. Do you agree?
I agree, but I also realize that if you get yourself too hung up on being loved, you can get very hurt because some people are not capable of loving. So all you're responsible for is you. So you have to love because it's easier to love someone, I realize, than to be angry at them. And even when people have hurt me, and a lot of people have hurt me, because I'm very trusting and open, and I know that getting hurt goes with the territory. But I will never change that, because that's what God has asked me to do, is to love my brothers and sisters. And we're not talking about the ones my mother gave birth to, but every man and woman that I encounter.
Tell how many your mother gave birth to.
My mother gave birth to 7 children, and I'm the first one.
Oh, I didn't know you were the oldest.
Yes, I'm always the oldest everywhere I go, Suzanne, even here at KMVT.
Don't say that in front of me, sister.
Yes, I'm the first.
So where are you going to continue with your life's journey?
Right now, I feel it's heading down a spiritual path. I feel that this show that I'm doing, as I look back at all the shows that I have done, initially when I started, it was supposed to encourage and inspire people, especially young people from a lower socioeconomic background, that they would be encouraged and understand that your parents, if they weren't wealthy, that doesn't cripple you. That doesn't make you incapable of living a fulfilling life. You can go out and make the best life. I know, because I have had to do most of my life on my own. But
how did you get so much motivation?
Because I learned that we have the power to do a lot more than we realize. And we can be our best friends or our worst enemies. It all has to do with your perspective. Life is 10% what happens to you and 90% what you do with what happens. And I've been on both sides. And I realize if I choose to go and give my power to the side that doesn't empower me and help me to grow, I am my own enemy. So I always have to stay in the light, stay in the positive, and it really works out. But when you tell yourself, oh, poor me, you know, all these things bad are happening to me, these people are doing this, what you are doing is you're blocking your own growth and your own success. And so it doesn't matter what happens. I know, I tell myself, this too shall pass. I'm a strong woman. I'm resilient. I'm tenacious. I am a rock. I cannot be destroyed. I'm indestructible. And that's what keeps me going.
Well, Jennylyn, I still believe, I mean, I'm assuming, which is no one should ever assume, but there must have been something in your childhood that made you develop this way in such a positive way with your family, with your mother and your father. Is that true?
It was a very challenging childhood for me. I was a stepchild. I was the first child and the stepchild. And then I looked very different to my siblings. And in addition to that, I was very sickly. In fact, my doctor told my mother I was not going to grow up to become a teenager.
Really?
Because I was in and out of the hospital. And looking back, I think the problem was where we lived. We lived on the border of Guyana and Venezuela. And it was jungle, to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
Because if you woke up in the morning and you started walking from your house and you didn't stop, you could walk the length of the city where I grew up. Everyone knew everyone. Everything I did, my parents knew. So I had to be the perfect little girl because my father and mother were very strict parents. And so because it was so much jungle, I was asthmatic. The molds, the place had a lot of molds. And that's why I was sick all the time.
A lot of what?
Molds. You know, that grow on the trees.
Oh, mold.
Yes.
I thought you said molds.
No, molds. M-O-U-L-D-S. It's the accent.
Yeah.
But anyway, because of that, I was sick all the time. And honestly, I really thought I would die as well. That was pretty bad.
As a little girl.
Yes, and so the treatment for that were injections. Antibiotic injections. I had to go to the hospital. They give me one in this side of my backside and that one, and for 7 days I would go, and I was always in pain because the injections were painful, and they injected it on your bottoms, and so.
But I think it's so interesting. You're such an interesting person.
Thank you, Suzanne.
No, you really are.
Thank you.
And I really admire your ability. You know, you're a very intelligent lady.
Thank you.
I think you do have one flaw.
What is that? Many, not just one.
No.
But which one are you thinking about?
I've told you this a million times, that you're so attractive that I think a lot of women probably have difficulty.
I do have a fair share of haters. I do. I have to admit it.
But you can't help how you look.
And I'm not going to change how I look for people to like me, because I think that would be one of my biggest mistakes. I accept and love all my friends the way they are. And if they ever ask me for tips to improve anything about themselves, I lovingly give it.
I know.
It's not a judgment, but you're asking, and if I could help, I will help. And so I think more than my look, the thing that brings me enemies is my balls, Susan. I have more than a bingo machine. I am very courageous.
But, you know, being not from the USA, your sense of humor is just up there, which you are so lucky, because I think if one doesn't have a sense of humor, they don't have very much fun in life.
You have to laugh. Look at our world. Look at our life. You just have to find something to laugh about every day.
Right.
Because I think when you're happy and you laugh, you release endorphins to help you to be in a better state of mind. And it's just it's much more fun to laugh than to mope and cry.
So what are you going to do when you're beat up old lady?
Well, I'm already halfway there. What you talking about? I'm just, you know what? I'm going to age as gracefully as I have to, but I'm always going to take care of myself. And when I get to your age, I want to look exactly like you.
You know, when,
I'm not kidding,
when
Suzanne.
people say that to me, it's so interesting because it doesn't make me feel good. It makes me feel old.
Well,
I mean, I should accept it as a compliment.
It is a compliment.
But people say that a lot.
Well, because I think as we get older, people say to me, your age too, because clearly I am not 30, I'm not 40, you know? And so I think that we put too much energy on a number. It's not the number, it's how you feel, it's how you look, it's how you take care of yourself. I don't know your number. And I don't want to know. I don't want to know it, because it doesn't change you from being this beautiful, wonderful friend that I really admire. And you're sitting here complimenting me. Am I allowed to tell you how I feel about you?
Of course.
When I started to do my show, I used to watch your videos, and I work on some of your shows.
That's right.
And I love it when I do, because each time I learn something from you that I implement in the way I am doing my show, and that is making my show better. So I have to tell you, a big part of who I am, I mean what I am in terms of my production of my show and the hosting of my show, I have learned from you.
Boy, that is a wonderful
And it's the
compliment.
truth.
Thank you so much.
So you need to understand that you have really had a huge impact and impression on me.
Thank you. Well, I have been so nervous about interviewing you. Isn't that funny? With all the interviews I've done, because I really admire you, and I respect you, and I trust you.
Thank you.
And I really, you have, honestly, so much talent.
Thank you.
You really do. And I'm so glad you were on the show.
Thank you.
And will you come back? Because, you know, you're kind of like a lady minister.
Thank you. Anytime. Wait, is it over?
It's over, and I want to thank our crew. Do we have a hot crew or not?
We do.
Yeah.
What are we going to do without them?
We couldn't do it.
No.
I certainly couldn't. Anyway, and I want to thank our viewers for watching. My God, what would I do without you guys? Now, this is really where I do my drama from my heart. Guess what? I can't wait to see you next time. Bye-bye.